This kind of information can be very useful.
Yeah, I mean, information, it's not like this is the answer. I mean,
right.
The Good Judgment Incorporated has had its share of mistakes, too. And when I talked to Philip Tetlock, who's a co-founder, University of Pennsylvania professor, and he was the first to say, look, it's rare that we're going to be way on one end, everybody's going to be way on the other, and we'll be right and they'll be wrong. But on the other hand, if you're right 52% of the time in the stock market, for example, you could make a lot of money. So you don't. Again, the measure of success is not perfection. It's just having a little bit of an edge. And I'm willing to say that maybe these people, just because of their disciplined way of thinking, the fact that they're not emotionally tied to a particular answer or financially invested in a particular answer, that they just want to make the very best estimate, makes them worth listening to.
Yeah.
Well, and Warren, we should note, your background is in hedge funds. I mean, you helped co-found a hedge fund. You understand the research element. And so from an investment perspective, exactly the framing that Peter just laid out is, I think, important for people to keep in mind, right?
I couldn't agree more. And I wish I knew, 20 years ago when I got started in Morgan Stanley, what I know now. Because there are all these wonderful tools that can give you just a little bit of an edge here and there. And it's these little things that when you add them all together can add up to a pretty significant outperformance relative to your peers. And that's what it's all about.
All right. Well, we really appreciate both of your time. Warren Hatch is the CEO of Good Judgment, joining us on the phone from New York City. Read more about him and his firm. He's a super forecaster. You can follow him on Twitter at Super Forecaster. Peter Coy wrote the story in Business Week online. Mm-hmm. Peter Coy, of course, economics editor for Bloomberg Businessweek. Couple headlines we want to hit on the way out, Carol.
Yeah, I want to hit the one on Cisco Systems. In advanced talks to buy software company, thousand eyes for nearly $1 billion, according to those in the know. Cisco could announce a deal for that company as soon as Thursday. So we're watching that one, Jason.
Can I hit another headline that makes me sad?
Yeah.
Boston Marathon canceled in September. It had been rescheduled from April, Patriots Day, till September. The mayor of Boston announcing on Twitter that they will not hold that race this year. There'll be some sort of virtual race. It's a huge bummer. I'm really, really upset for anybody who had qualified to run. Let's get to Bob Moon now. He's got world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, thank you. A dire warning from the United Nations today about the ongoing threat posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned world leaders the pandemic will cause unimaginable devastation and suffering around the world, with historic levels of hunger and famine and up to 1.6 billion people unable to earn a living unless action is taken now. He called for immediate and collective action in several critical areas, including enhancing global financial liquidity, providing debt relief, and special focus on tax evasion, money laundering, and corruption. The House of Representatives passed a bipartisan bill to make it easier for small businesses to take advantage of the federal subsidy to keep workers on the payroll. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Washington.
Republican Steve Chabot endorsed the bill.
Back in March, the covered period was defined as 8 weeks. This bill extends the 8-week to 24 weeks.
Democratic sponsor Dean Phillips cited a plea from, among others, a restaurant owner in his district.
The problem is that because our business is a restaurant, we are not able to open it up fully, where we could hire our entire staff back under the conditions of the loan. The complexities of balancing staying open or closing will be determined by what the government is able to change via this bill.
Bipartisan co-sponsors have introduced a similar bill in the Senate. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
And recapping the story breaking this hour, the Boston Marathon has been canceled for the first time in its 124-year history. Organizers announced today they'll instead have a virtual event in which participants who verify they ran 26.2 miles on their own will receive their finisher's medal. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
When you follow the facts, experts. Bloomberg's been reporting on this intelligence community report.
When you seek out the experts.
The investment banks that Bloomberg speak to also want some relief.
No matter what else is happening.
It's been pretty hard to read the signals.
At least you know what's real.
The economic fallout from the virus risks becoming entrenched.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
please be done.
Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
How long? How much?
There's a reason flash storage is called flash storage and not electronic non-volatile computer memory storage. From quick and efficient data retrieval to instant scalability, everything about IBM flash storage is fast. It's also cloud-ready and surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £310 for 24 terabytes of all flash. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Find out more at ibm.biz/flash offer.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Are you ready for the realest first-hand take of what's happening in the NBA? On their podcast, All the Smoke, former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson bring their fiery intensity to the mic, dishing on the latest news and drama from on and off the court without boundaries.
Half man, half amazing. My friend, our brother, Vince Carter, man. Welcome to the show.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, my brother?
Man, I'm good.
Search All the Smoke on TuneIn to listen. Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games.
It's that scoreboard again! Bergeron, he scores!
With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can listen to every power play, slap shot, and goal of the 2019-2020 season so far.
Suter to Cunnin to Fiala. He scores!
And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Stocks are advancing well off session highs, though. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here's Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. Main U.S. averages, like you said, in the green, off-session highs, and tech did overcome a negative start. Dow's currently up 93 points. S&P's gained 20. NASDAQ is higher by 58. The U.S. 10-year yield at 0.7%. WTI crude futures are up 3%. Gold gains 8, and transports fall 40 points. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Pfizer, Raytheon, and Procter & Gamble, while Disney and American Express led to the downside. In deal news, Cisco is said to near $1 billion takeover of software company Thousand Eyes. And in other news, Rolls-Royce was cut to junk by S&P. Home Depot hit a record intraday high, and Dollar Tree rose 11% after earnings. Wrapping things up, some of the names pointing after the bell tonight include Costco, Dell Technologies, and Salesforce. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, thank you, Bill. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, Huawei continues to be in the news, and owing in part to our continued attention that we're paying to cybersecurity, and also some headlines yesterday coming out of Canada. Here to discuss all that, Andy Purdy, Chief Security Officer for Huawei Technologies USA, joining us on the phone from Bethesda. Andy, really nice to have you back with us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right. So let's start on the news if we can. The CFO of Huawei, the parent company, continues to be part of a big legal fight in Canada. Help us understand what's going on, and candidly, beyond the legal issue here, sort of what it means for business, what it means for the brand at this point.
Well, the effort against Ms. Meng, our Chief Financial Officer, is part of the overall effort the last couple of years by the U.S. government to carpet bomb Huawei out of existence. And in terms of the impact on the company, the decision involving Ms. Meng and the process for extradition will take quite a number of months, if not years, before there might be an actual trial in the Eastern District of New York. And we have great confidence in the legal systems of Canada and the U.S., so we feel like she'll be vindicated in the end. But right now, this campaign against Huawei, the recent ramping up of pressure on American companies' ability to sell to Huawei, even through international companies, is going to have a tremendous negative impact on American jobs.
You know, it's interesting, that this is going on amid a week or two where we are seeing, once again, heightened tensions and back and forth between the head of the United States, President Trump, and, of course, Chinese President Xi Jinping. And how do you see this? You've got to run your business amid kind of all of this fury. And we're trying to figure out, is it rhetoric or is it going to turn into actions that ultimately impact both China and the United States?
Well, there's certainly been an impact on our company.
Right.
The impact was about $12 billion last year, and we haven't been able to estimate what the impact will be this year. Of course, it's complicated by the added factor of the pandemic. But you look at the overall situation, the geopolitical situation between China and the U.S. is what we're talking about, and that's exacerbated now by the U.S. presidential campaign. So the competition among President Trump and former Vice President Biden to out-maneuver the other in terms of anti-China rhetoric, kind of a new Red Scare kind of thing, indicates that this battle is going to go on at least through the election, and there doesn't seem to be rational discussion, and people don't seem to care about the fact that American jobs are going to be lost as a result.
And can you quantify, the jobs piece of this? I understand that obviously things are complicated, but in terms of the pandemic, and it remains to be seen what the total economic impact is. But help us understand, you guys have several offices around the country here. What has it meant, and maybe help us understand sort of the 1-2 punch, as it were, of this action and this confrontation between the United States and China, as well as the pandemic. Synthesize that for us if you can, Andy.
Well, in terms of within the U.S., we have two issues. We have the issue of whether or not Huawei can sell to American companies, and right now we're serving parts of rural America. And the other issue is the ability of American companies, nearly 300, want to be able to sell to Huawei. So in terms of our global revenues, which last year, despite all this, were up about 19%, we were impacted about $12 billion.
Right.
But the annual amount that we procure from American companies is not just to serve our customers in America. It's our global market. At its height, we had about 30 or 32% of all Huawei global components came from American companies, and they're primarily in the semiconductor industry. And you can see in the last couple of months, and they can speak for it a lot better than I can, that American semiconductor companies and their associations, trade associations, have basically been saying, look, the limitations on the ability of American companies to sell to Huawei is averaging about $12 billion a year. That is estimated to be between 40 and 50,000 direct jobs, not to count the indirect jobs. And so the fact is, we're fighting for our survival. We're going to be okay, and we would like to continue to buy from American companies, and I, as an American, want to be able to see those jobs continue. If we have to, we'll go elsewhere, and then we won't come back, and those American jobs will go away, and that's not going to help America, and in the long term, it's not going to hurt Huawei. And the strategy, you talk about the bigger picture, the strategy is that the U.S. wants to hurt Huawei to hurt China, because they are afraid of the rise of China economically and militarily. So that's really at the heart of it. And so instead of promoting greater innovation technology by America, they're trying to hurt Huawei. And that's not going to help America vis-a-vis China in terms of a long-term competition, which is very important.
Andy, to be fair, and unfortunately we've only got about 45 seconds here, but I mean, nothing ever happens in a vacuum, right? And I know as part of the latest, trade agreement, China was supposed to be buying a certain amount of energy products and so on and so forth, and that isn't necessarily happening. And you see China now, in terms of what it's doing in Hong Kong, there's a lot of uncertainty and moves on both sides. What's the responsibility of China in all of this? And unfortunately, just got about 30 seconds here.
Well, I mean, we're independent of the China government. We're an independent company, probably the largest privately owned company in China.
Right.
And so we can contribute to competition and job growth. So the conduct of the China government is different than us. And I may not like what they do, and I may not like what the U.S. government does, but that's separate from us.
Well, I wish we had more time. And Andy, you've been so gracious to, keep coming back so we can continue this conversation. So I look forward to engaging with you in the future. Andy Purdy at Huawei Technologies USA. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. It's a great time to buy a home or refinance yours. Mortgage rates are at a record low for the third time since the pandemic began. Freddie Mac's average for 30-year fixed-rate loans is at 3.15%. The previous low was 3.23. Few people were out and about in the home resale market last month. The National Association of Realtors says pending home sales fell nearly 22% to a record low. Pending sales measure signing of home purchase contracts. Stocks are modestly higher in the final hour. Data showing economic damage from the pandemic was not as bad as had been feared, fueling the rally. The Dow was up 163, the S&P up 28, the Nasdaq up 86. Restaurant owners fear they could be wiped out if social distancing forces them to operate at a fraction of their capacity. The Wall Street Journal says added safety measures and increased cleaning will only add to the cost pressure. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
With COVID-19, so much is unknown.
Is this the worst you've seen?
But we are committed to getting you every piece of information we can as soon as we can.
Tell us about this first big win you have. What is it, 24 million N95 masks?
Fewer unknowns.
Who's winning here? Where is the pressure right now?
That's our goal.
What worries you the most? The time it's going to take for a vaccine?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are...
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
At Tesco, we've price-matched Aldi on hundreds of products like bananas, peppers, chicken breasts, mushrooms, Warburton's bread, strawberries, even avocados. That's Tesco products at Aldi prices. Because now more than ever, every little helps. Tesco. Prices checked on comparable products from GBLD stores and online twice weekly. Price most often found matched excluding promotions. Selected Tesco stores excluding Express and all Northern Ireland stores. Products and their availability vary weekly and by store. Details at tesco.com/Aldi price match.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, well, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
round the bases with the StatCast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL Show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Pulls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic Game Replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
10, to the 5, touchdown!
Search classic Game Replays to listen for free.
New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to hear from Dave Wilson. He's going to talk about trucking. You're so excited.
I am excited because it tells you a lot about the economy, or potentially can. And this is happening as we're seeing stocks take a little bit of a leg down. We've got a bit of a mixed trade right now. Little changes overall. So let's actually bring back Charlie Pellet. Let's talk about those numbers,
Well,
Charlie.
let's talk about those numbers indeed. Last update told you we were higher with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all in the green. Not the case right now. 22-point drop in the Dow, just turning negative, down now by 0.1%. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. We've got the S&P up 7, up 0.2%. NASDAQ up 8, up by 0.1%. Stocks paired gains after President Trump said he would be holding a press conference tomorrow to discuss China potentially stoking tensions between the world's two largest economies. The 10-year down 5/30 seconds with a yield of 0.69%. We've got gold up 0.5%, $17.17 the ounce. Crude oil up 1.9%. West Texas Intermediate crude now at $33.41 a barrel. American Express says it's shifting hundreds and hundreds of its employees and its sales units to handle collections and other credit work, and plans to set aside more for loan losses this quarter. Shares of American Express down now by 2.8%. Also, some of the other stories we're following: Credit Suisse Group is preparing a review of one of its most profitable business areas under new CEO Thomas Gottstein after taking a hit on loans to its richest clients. UBS shares down now by 0.6%. Toll Brothers surging after the company posted profit that beat estimates. Toll shares right now, they have just turned lower. As a matter of fact, we've got Toll down 52 cents, $32.50 right now on shares of Toll. 3:33 on Wall Street. Time now for the Small Business Report, and here's John Tucker.
The American Camp Association estimates there are 14,000 camps in the U.S. Most of them are small businesses like Apple Farm Arts and Music Center in Elmer, New Jersey. For this nonprofit, the pandemic means no summer camp for kids. Executive Director Corey Solomon is with us now. Corey, this is heartbreaking.
It sadly doesn't seem like a reality that is safe. And ultimately, as a summer camp director, we always start with trying to make sure our kids and the families that they're safe. And we don't have enough information. Even with the guidelines that have been rolled out, the CDC and the American Camping Association has put out a lot of information. But with so many unknowns about this virus still and how it affects children and what's going to happen with this a second wave and, you know, living in an intimate environment like a residential camp where we have 350 people sleeping and eating and, you know, playing together, it's not a reality that I think will happen. So sadly, we are planning to cancel the summer, which would be the first summer we don't have camp in 60 years.
In terms of the money that you got, the reservations, how does that work?
That's the part of this that makes it financially so difficult, because most of our families register for camp at the end of the summer for the following summer, and then they pay quarterly payments leading up to that. So we've already collected, you know, several hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition. What we're trying to do now is figure out the best options to make sure that we do right by our families, because those relationships ultimately are the most important, but also make sure that we can make it through to next summer still. So we're providing families with the option to roll over their camp tuition to next summer, which would be the most helpful financially for us, outside of donating the money, which is, of course, ultimately the best choice for the organization. But of course, you know, not all families are in a position to be able to do that. And then the third option would be that they do get a refund.
Corey Solomon, Executive Director of Apple Farm Arts and Music Center in Elmer, New Jersey. Best of luck. Thanks for being with us. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Small Business Report.
And we thank you very much, John Tucker. NASDAQ down by a point right now. S&P holding on to a 3-point gain barely. The Dow down 56. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio. Called this at the top of the show.
Totally.
I said Grateful Dead.
I love it.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Let's cruise into a little Thursday afternoon here with Dave Wilson. Trucking, it is one of Carol's favorite things. It's
This was
one
my
of
first concert.
Oh, the Grateful Dead?
My brother, who was a total deadhead, would travel all over the place.
Yeah.
With Jerry Garcia doll hanging in his car.
Wow.
Yeah. He was kind of all in on it. Anyway, he took me and my best friend to a Dead concert. It was great. It was quite an experience.
I bet it was quite an experience. All right, Dave Wilson, before we lose Carol Massar completely, yesterday we lost her to ice cream, today we lose her to Grateful Dead reminiscing. Talk to us about the trucking industry in your chart.
Well, Jason, in fairness, and we kind of lost you yesterday to Tom Petty. I figured it was Carol's turn.
Dave Wilson, I adore you. I really do. You're just such a good guy.
You keep it fair, Dave.
I know.
You do.
I know you do. All right. So let's talk trucks.
Well, the trucking was sort of an obvious choice because of the nature of the chart. And it's something that came to my attention because Matt Maley, who's the chief market strategist at Miller Tabak, referred to trucking stocks in a note he had out yesterday as being an area of strength to the point where perhaps it's an economic indicator that, things may come around sooner and much more strongly than many people anticipate after, the recession that we've basically fallen into at this point. And to kind of show what's going on there, because, there's been so much focus when you look at transportation on the airlines and the way that they've been hurt. And it kind of obscures what's happening elsewhere within the transportation industry. So what I did was take the S&P Composite 1500 index, pretty broad-based. I mean, there are only 2 truckers in the S&P 500, so, I figured might as well get a broader group. And then compare that with other elements within the S&P transportation categories, specifically looking at railroads, air freight and logistics companies, and airlines. And when you run the numbers, you find out that over the past 12 months, at least the 12 months ended yesterday, the S&P Composite Trucking Index was up 39%. And in fact, had made back its losses in February and March as stocks were falling, and set records the last 2 days. So if it's up today, you're talking 3 in a row. Now, you compare that with the railroads and the air freight companies, they're both up about 1% in the last 12 months. And the railroads, were holding their own. The air freight was holding its own. Airlines, down 47%. So the transportation index was actually lower because of the weakness in the airlines. And so, trucking companies, you're talking about shipping goods here, there, and everywhere. And the idea that this group would not only hold up over the last 12 months, but basically bounce back from, the bear market we saw in February and March. Well, it is telling. And we'll see how much economic significance it has, but it's certainly something that caught Maley's attention. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. World of Nat. Now let's go to Bob Moon.
Very much. They are trying to get a handle on the violence in Minneapolis. Mayor Jacob Fry responding to violent protests that have brought death and destruction to the streets of Minneapolis after an out-of-work security guard was killed by police officers on Monday. On the activities seen over the past few nights, the mayor says he believes in Minneapolis. At a press conference today, he said over the next few days there will be an all-out effort to restore peace in Minneapolis.
I've authorized a unified command structure that allows our Chief Arredondo to utilize resources, personnel from other jurisdictions. We've requested assistance from the state, and we are thankful to the governor for the support.
There have been 2 straight nights of violence in Minneapolis. A statement of compassion from the president today, which led reporters to ask White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany why it took the president until this morning to acknowledge the U.S. COVID-19 death toll reaching 100,000.
The president recognized that landmark before we even hit it. The president, that was, after all, it was the impetus behind him lowering the flag to half staff. He did that for several days, and that was an acknowledgement of that number approaching, and he acknowledged it in a tweet this morning.
Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
President of the Jewish Communal Fund, Zoya Raines, and her husband Robert Friedman, Jewish activists and philanthropists, talk about why they chose the Jewish Communal Fund for their charitable giving.
As very busy working parents, we wanted to focus more on the charity part of it and wanted to focus more on our children and less on the administration.
The Jewish Communal Fund is one of the oldest and largest donor-advised funds, but at the same time, they're totally up to date and have state-of-the-art systems for us to access and manage our contributions online. The assets in our fund at the JCF grow tax-free, so we can generate more charitable dollars to support the charities that we care about most.
Let JCF minimize your taxes and maximize your charitable giving.
We're incredibly passionate about our charity, and the JCF allows us to focus more on the charity and less on the administration and the headaches.
For more information about Jewish Communal Fund, visit our website at jcfny.org and request a new fund kit.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you are thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You're living in a world built on science, politics.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC.